Welcome to this explainer. We're going to jump right in today because we are breaking down the absolute real secret to wealth. We're completely demystifying how true wealth accumulation actually works, moving way past all those flashy social media posts and diving into the hard math and, honestly, the mindset that actually builds fortunes. Spoiler alert here, it's not about what you earn, it's about what you keep and the psychology behind those decisions. Okay, let's dive into this. I want to start with a really provocative question drawn straight from the classic research in The Millionaire Next Door. Where are the millionaires who actually look like millionaires? We all have this deeply ingrained kind of stereotypical notion of what wealth is supposed to look like, right? The luxury cars, the designer clothes, the massive sprawling estates. But what if I told you that looking wealthy and actually being wealthy are often two completely opposite things? Think about it like this. On one side, we've got the flashy spender. They might pull in a massive income, but they just consume relentlessly, which keeps them fundamentally asset poor. Then, on the flip side, we have the stealth wealth millionaire. The reality of the average millionaire might actually shock you. They are budget-conscious, highly frugal, and often live right in ordinary middle-class neighborhoods. Believe it or not, the average millionaire is statistically way more likely to buy a $40 pair of shoes than a $500 pair. Why? Because they prioritize accumulating appreciable assets over showing off the latest seasonal footwear. The math? Well, the math just doesn't care about your designer labels. And check out this staggering number, 379,000. That is the number of brand new US millionaires created in the year 2024 alone, according to the UBS Global Wealth Report. I mean, think about that. That's over 1,000 new millionaires minted every single day. The big takeaway here is simple. Reaching this financial milestone isn't just some pipe dream for lottery winners or tech founders. It's mathematically totally within reach for ordinary people who just apply the right principles. So, here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to start with the millionaire myth, then look at psychology and behavior, cover the power of saving, explore extreme early retirement, and finally, wrap up with building your wealth blueprint.
Section 1. The Millionaire Myth. Breaking the illusions of wealth.
Now, what's really interesting about these stats on car ownership among the wealthy is that only 24% buy brand new cars. Seriously, over half purchase used or lease, and a solid 25% haven't even bought a car in over 4 years. This utterly shatters the myth that the wealthy only drive brand new top-of-the-line vehicles. The vast majority actively avoid them. They want to preserve their investment capital. Being frugal is what gives them the actual dollar base required to invest in the first place. Which brings us to a pretty harsh reality for a lot of higher earners, captured perfectly by Thomas Danley and William Danko. Quote, "They are debt-prone and are on an earn and consume treadmill. It's such a dangerous trap." It is incredibly common for households pulling in six-figure salaries to still be entirely asset poor. Why? Because they're living paycheck to paycheck just to fund a lifestyle that merely looks rich. If your ultimate goal is just to make money so you can spend money on the quote-unquote good life, the math literally says you are never actually going to achieve true financial security.
Section 2. Psychology and Behavior. The Invisible Engine of Wealth.
Morgan Housel points out a really fascinating truth in his work. Earning and keeping money is about behavior, not intelligence. You could literally be a certified financial genius, but if you lack emotional control and let your ego dictate your spending, you could completely ruin yourself. On the flip side, ordinary, disciplined people with absolutely no formal financial education can and do thrive and build massive wealth, and it's simply because they have robust behavioral skills. Let's consider two totally different investors to put this in perspective. Take one born in the 1950s. They experienced flat stock markets during their formative years, so naturally they grew up to be highly cautious. Now compare them to an investor born in the 1970s who experienced massive, roaring bull markets and is highly bullish today. Neither of them is objectively wrong, but their unique, narrow personal experiences heavily bias their financial decisions right now. We're all walking around wearing lenses colored by our past, and that is exactly why you absolutely must leave room for error in your financial planning. Section 3. The power of saving, the ultimate deal maker. So the crucial point here is that compounding wealth over time is this steady, almost organic process, kind of like growing a giant oak tree. It might look super straightforward on a spreadsheet, but actually pulling it off, that requires immense discipline, patience, a heavy dose of frugality, and frankly, a bit of healthy paranoia about potential losses. It's the slow, steady compounding of those saved dollars over decades that truly builds an empire.
I absolutely love this quote from Morgan Housel. Your savings is the gap between your ego and the income you earn. We desperately need to reframe how we think about saving money. It isn't this painful sacrifice or some miserable restriction on your joy. It's really just a healthy reduction of your ego and a brilliant defense against lifestyle creep. When you finally stop trying to prove how much money you have to everyone else, your savings rate naturally skyrockets.
Section 4. Extreme early retirement, pushing the mathematical boundaries.
Yep, that number is absolutely correct, 80%. That is the massive savings rate achieved by Danish astrophysicist Jakob Lund Fisker. By saving 80% of a fairly standard median income, he was able to reach total financial independence and retire at the age of 33. No way, right? But think about the hard math for a second. When you save that much of what you make, you are literally banking several years of living expenses for every single year that you work.
So how on earth did he actually pull that off? Well, he used what he calls systems theory, applied directly to personal finance. Instead of just buying a slightly cheaper car or renting a slightly cheaper apartment, Fisker looked at the entire system as a whole. He found inexpensive housing within walking distance of his work and a supermarket. That single calculated decision entirely eliminated the need for a car. No car means no car insurance, no gas, no maintenance. He wasn't just clipping coupons here, he completely rewired his lifestyle. Decoupling from standard societal norms in this way creates just massive financial resilience.
Section 5. Building your wealth blueprint. Actionable rules for the everyday investor.
All right, bringing it back down to earth, here are 6 core steps you can take action on today. First up, develop a written plan. Just saying you want to be wealthy isn't a plan. Actually writing it down forces you to calculate the math and execute. Second, make saving habitual. You got to pay yourself first. Third, live below your means to dodge that lifestyle creep we talked about. Fourth, avoid high-interest debt like the plague. Fifth, invest steadily and just let that compound interest do the heavy lifting for you. And finally, sixth, do not be afraid to get professional advice when things start getting a bit too complex.
But listen, there is a major threat to wealth once you've actually built it, and it's called economic outpatient care, or EOC. This refers to the economic presents or handouts that adult children receive from their wealthy parents. Now, I know it feels incredibly generous to help your kids out, right? But it very often completely hinders their own ability to generate wealth. This kind of toxic financial enabling leaves the next generation undisciplined, highly reliant on credit, and ultimately totally unable to sustain the family's financial legacy.
So, how do you raise productive kids if you are affluent? Here are a few golden rules for parents. Hide your wealth from your kids until they are mature and disciplined. Teach them frugality above everything else. Do not discuss their inheritance. And crucially, praise their achievements, not the flashy symbols of success. It's a massive irony that simply gifting your kids money often leaves them completely debt-prone. You have to teach them the behavioral skills first. But ultimately, this whole shebang comes right back to you and your own mindset. I want to conclude this explainer with a provocative double question for you to really chew on. First, when will you stop moving the goalpost and finally define what enough actually is for you? And second, could you live on the equivalent of 6.7% of your wealth, just like a lot of self-made millionaires actually do? I challenge you to rethink your personal definition of wealth, take a really hard look at your financial behaviors, and start building your own stealth wealth blueprint today. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.